The hidden cost of filtered information, how corporations lose reality between middle management, consultants, and the board. SEP 13th Introduction. In global corporations, decision-making rarely relies on raw operational truth. By the time information travels from the ground to the sea level, it has been transformed, filtered, reframed, and often manipulated. Middle management, motivated by self-preservation, carefully selects what is shown and what is concealed. External consulting firms are then contracted not to reveal uncomfortable realities, but to produce independent documents tailored to legitimize decisions that are already politically convenient. What emerges at the boardroom level is not an accurate picture of the organization, but a fabricated narrative. The danger lies in the fact that this narrative, once dressed in the authority of a consultant's report, becomes the official truth, displacing the reality of the field. The architecture of filtering 1. Middle management as gatekeepers. Career preservation. Middle managers fear that exposing structural problems could undermine their own standing. Pharma, clinical example. A clinical development manager notices that phase 3 trial sites in Latin America have much higher dropout rates than expected. Reporting this would mean admitting poor CRO selection and exposing their own judgment to criticism. Instead of escalating the issue, they minimize it in the reports, framing it as common retention challenges. The board approves continued investment in the trial, which later fails, resulting in hundreds of millions in losses. Industrial example. A plant manager observes that production lines are running at maximum capacity and preventive maintenance is being skipped. Rather than report a looming shutdown risk, they present it as minor operational delays. Their career remains safe in the short term, but the company faces a production collapse in the medium term. Information curation. They choose which problems to emphasize and which to downplay, often transforming systemic risks into manageable challenges. Pharma commercial example. A regional manager reports to the board that the launch of a new drug in Korea achieved early positive adoption because a handful of reference hospitals accepted it. They deliberately omit that insurers are rejecting reimbursements and that the majority of the market is blocked. What is presented as initial success is, in reality, a stagnant market. Technology example. An IT manager highlights that the company's AI customer support system achieved 95% uptime. They conceal the fact that users are abandoning it due to poor response quality. The convenient metric, uptime, is emphasized, while the dangerous one, user adoption, is hidden. Agenda setting. By controlling the flow of information upward, they define what the C-level perceives as reality. Korean conglomerate example. A semiconductor division director wants to defend the construction of a new 2N-meter fab line. They selectively escalate data, highlighting client pressure from Tesla and inflating demand projections, while downplaying energy cost risks and dependency on U.S. subsidies. By doing this, they frame the agenda for the board. The debate is no longer should we invest, but how much and how soon. Public health example. An intermediate team in a health ministry prepares a vaccination program report. The headline reads, "Coverage exceeds 80 cents in select provinces," while buried in the annexes is the reality that rural coverage is below 40%. The agenda is fixed around consolidating achievements rather than closing gaps. 2. Consultants as legitimizers. Tailored reports. Firms like McKinsey, BCG, or Deloitte are contracted to deliver documents that reinforce the narrative already shaped by middle management. Pharma example. A global pharmaceutical company wants to justify cutting its phase 2 oncology program due to budget pressures. Rather than admit it's a financial decision, it commissions an external market analysis showing that commercial viability is limited. The report emphasizes competitor strength and reimbursement barriers, while ignoring promising clinical signals. The tailored report provides the board with a strategic cover story. The cut was not financial, but evidence-based. Industrial example. A large manufacturing group seeks to close an unprofitable shipyard. To avoid union backlash, it orders an efficiency study, concluding that global overcapacity and falling margins make continued operations unsustainable. The study reinforces the narrative already chosen by management, masking the political and financial motivations behind the closure. Conditional independence. Their survival depends on alignment with the client's agenda. Inconvenient truths risk contract renewal. Pharma example. A biotech firm hires a consulting team to evaluate its clinical pipeline before a financing round. The consultants understand their mandate is to reassure investors. Instead of highlighting weak data in immunology trials, the report frames them as strategic optionality. The message aligns with the client's funding agenda. Had the consultants produced a more critical assessment, the contract would not have been renewed. Technology example. An electronics manufacturer commissions a review of its AI infrastructure investment. The expectation is clear. Validate the capital expenditure already committed. The report confirms strong ROI potential, while quietly omitting the risk that the technology is still immature. Independence is conditional. The analysis is shaped by what sustains the client's chosen path. Creation of source documents. Once published, these reports gain institutional weight as if they were neutral analyses, despite being partial by design. Pharma example. A 200-page market access landscape is produced for a diabetes drug. Internally, everyone knows it was designed to justify a pricing strategy already decided by the commercial team. Once circulated, however, the report is treated as a neutral baseline for regulators, payers, and internal committees. Over time, it becomes the institutional source document guiding strategic discussions, even though its origin was partial and agenda-driven. Public policy example. A government ministry commissions a competitiveness white paper for the national biotech sector. The consulting team, working closely with officials, frames the report to emphasize industries politically important to the ruling party. Despite this bias, the white paper is later cited in parliamentary debates and shapes legislation for years as if it were an objective expert analysis. Symbolic case study: divergent forecasts in the smartphone era. In the early stages of the smartphone boom, two major electronics conglomerates from the same country hired the same global consulting firm to provide market forecasts and strategic recommendations. The dilemma for the consultancy: delivering identical conclusions to two direct competitors would undermine credibility and risk losing one of the contracts. The solution chosen: the firm produced contrasting narratives. To one client, a positive forecast emphasizing the scalability of global smartphone demand, the need for aggressive expansion, and the potential to dominate hardware innovation. To the other client, a negative forecast, stressing risks of market saturation, high R&D costs, and limited profitability outside niche segments. Outcome: one conglomerate invested heavily, scaled globally, and became a dominant player. The other hesitated, underinvested, and eventually exited the smartphone business altogether. Lesson: what appeared to be independent expert advice was in fact tailored guidance shaped by the consultancy's commercial need to satisfy both clients. The reports became source documents with institutional weight, even though they were partial by design. 3. Boardroom dependence. Reliance on official sources. C-level executives already distant from field operations accept these documents as authoritative. A board approves expansion into a new region based on a glowing market potential report. Field managers know distribution networks are weak, but their warnings never reach the top. Illusion of clarity. Strategic decisions are taken with confidence because they appear supported by external expertise, when in fact they are built on curated evidence. Executives greenlight a $500 million R&D project because an external study projects high probability of success. The underlying data are selectively chosen, and the project fails within 2 years. Loss of diagnostic ability. The organization begins to manage symbols rather than reality. Quarterly reviews focus on consultant slide decks rather than real operational KPIs. Problems on the ground accumulate, but leadership debates only the symbolic metrics shown in presentations. The hidden costs of decisions on filtered information. Financial costs. Misallocation of capital into projects never viable in practice. Massive sunk costs in expansions, M&A, or product launches built on unrealistic assumptions. Opportunity loss as competitors who see the ground truth capture market share. Operational costs. Blindness to regulatory, logistical, or workforce constraints until they escalate into crises. Delay in corrective action because warning signals never reach decision makers. A culture of inertia where failing projects continue because admitting error would expose the filtration system. Reputational costs. Investors and shareholders lose trust when reported forecasts collapse against real results. Employees perceive the leadership as detached, creating cynicism and accelerating talent flight. Growing dependency on consultants as credibility substitutes, eroding the company's internal authority. Strategic costs. Capture of leadership by middle management narratives. The board no longer leads but follows the filtered reality. Structural blindness. The organization forfeits its ability to read the operational field directly. Exposure to systemic shocks. When reality finally breaks through the fiction, failed trials, regulatory bans, strikes, the collapse is sudden and catastrophic. Why the cycle persists. The cycle survives because it is politically convenient. Middle managers shield themselves. Consultants are paid to legitimize. Boards gain the illusion of decisive leadership. Each actor benefits in the short term, even as the organization drifts toward long-term failure. This is why most large corporations live in a permanent state of epistemic vulnerability. They cannot see themselves truthfully. A field-tested alternative, the direct integrity method. Breaking the cycle requires more than demanding better reports. It requires building parallel circuits of truth that bypass the filtering architecture. One proven model includes 3 pillars. 1. Direct meetings with juniors without managers present. Hold small, private sessions with analysts, engineers, or frontline staff. Encourage them to share what is really happening without fear of career consequences. Provides raw, unfiltered information and builds symbolic trust across the hierarchy. 2. Short, unannounced field visits. Visit a plant, clinic, or customer touchpoint without entourage or advanced preparation. Observe operations as they naturally occur. In less than an hour, executives can see frictions and inefficiencies that never appear in reports. 3. Independent microsurveys. Commission quick, anonymous surveys directly from frontline employees or end users. Keep them short, 3 to 5 questions, and route results straight to the executive office, bypassing middle management. Acts as a continuous reality sensor to compare against curated reports. Implications for leadership executives who rely exclusively on curated documents will continue to manage fiction. Those who adopt direct methods of verification, private meetings with juniors, short unannounced field visits, and independent microsurveys, regain their epistemic sovereignty. These practices reconnect leadership with operational reality and expose early signals that filtered reports suppress. The shift is not only practical, but symbolic. It shows employees, investors, and regulators that the corporation values truth over convenience and resilience over theatrics. A leadership team that listens directly, sees directly, and measures directly restores its ability to read the organization and its environment without intermediaries. Conclusion. The cost of filtered information is cumulative. Financial losses, operational blindness, reputational damage, and strategic drift. The source of the problem is structural, an architecture of filtering maintained by middle management and legitimized by consultancies. The corrective is equally structural, establishing direct epistemic integrity circuits that bypass the filters. By combining digital sensors, SNS, embodied exchange, training, and symbolic presence, congresses, corporations can bridge the gap between boardroom and field. In an age where narratives collapse quickly under external shocks, those who fail to build such circuits will continue to lead organizations blindfolded. Those who succeed will recover the rarest and most valuable corporate asset, the ability to see reality as it is.
Welcome to the Biopharma Business Intelligence Unit, where symbolic integrity meets strategic clarity. At BBIU, we go beyond the headlines to decode the structural forces behind global biopharma, AI, and economic realignment. If you value precision, verification, and symbolic depth, this channel is for you. Subscribe now to access our weekly briefings, dossiers, and intelligence reports, and consider joining our institutional tier to unlock early warning systems, custom metrics, and exclusive strategic insight. You're not just listening, you're entering the future of epistemic intelligence. www.biopharmabusinessintelligenceunit.com